Hello guys, it's Josh here, and today we are doing part 2 of landscape types and styles, and this time we're talking about landscape types, and we're going to go through briefly how to distinguish through all the types. And of course you realize that the whole world has different kinds of landscapes, and the way they look, the way they feel, the way they express themselves in different places makes it something to always bring questions in our minds. Was it really planned this way, or actually was a mistake or accidental to do it? But I would say if we understand all the types and styles, you know what the designer was actually planning. And so in landscape types and styles, we are first of all going to look at three major parts of landscapes, and three major parts of landscapes help us. These parts help us to know which type, and this is like an element that we can weigh when we are defining the type of landscape. And of course, the first part is softscape. And what softscape is actually, softscape is all the natural or green all over any landscape. Green, the soil, and all the things that are natural around any landscape. This is called softscape. And then the other part is hardscape, which is all the naturally the artificially built landscapes elements, for example walkways and patios and paving and staircases, all the hard elements that are not actually natural. We can use natural stone to make hardscapes, but something that cannot grow, or something that does not actually change with dynamically, like the way softscape changes. So hardscape is mainly all this hard part of any landscape. And then the last part would first of all look at, for example, this landscape here. You'll find that there is softscape, then there is hardscape, all the walkways and the walls, the staircases, all that is hardscape. But the question is, there is always something distinct in every landscape, and those are actually called the borders. Now, the borders are these lines that actually separate the softscape and hardscape. Now, why are the borders so important is because every landscape is distinct because of the shape or the flow of the borders. And so if we understand these three parts, the softscape, the hardscape, and also the borders, we are able to actually distinguish certain types of landscapes. And so every landscape designed has always these three elements that can actually make us know what the designer was in the first place planning. And you'll find out that hardscapes have certain look, color, and same to the softscape have certain shape, color, and all the way they flow. And what happens is, in any landscape, these three elements will actually be able to define what type that landscape is. So it depends on the behavior of these three elements. And then if we are to now come to the types of landscapes, I would say there are 3 types of landscapes all over the world. And what the first type of landscape would be is formal landscape. Now, just like in the picture, you would see that the trees there, and the lawn and the walkways, the hardscape, the borders are also existent. You'll find that they are distinct in a way that they have been, for example, the topiary, how they have cut the trees is actually in neat and unique shapes, and it's like a cone, and it's a geometrical shape. So what is going to really distinguish these elements is the shape. There's geometrical and these and irregular shapes. So geometrical shapes are actually what define formal landscape. That you're going to see a walkway, and it's a straight line and very neat, and whatever is done on the left is always done on the right. There is no need to change what is on the other side. And on the other side, for example, we look at such a landscape, you find that the trees around it have been in the garden have been really shaped into geometrical shapes. You find it's rectangular squares, and then you find the garden also has been, whatever is done on the left part is done on the right part, and then the fountains are in round, very geometrical round shapes. And then you find that even the flowers are not allowed to grow wild. So that's the main distinction with formal landscape type. And so the next I would say is what we call informal landscape. Now, what is an informal landscape? Informal landscape is everything in the landscape is irregular. We allow the plants, we allow the soil, we allow everything around to be as wild as possible, to be irregular. It's not something that we actually plan. We don't need to make, for example, the pots here in the picture, we don't need to make them face the same direction to stand in certain positions. We have to put them as though it's something natural. It's embracing more of the natural nature. Even in homes, you find that for example, in the left here, left picture, you find it's a modern house, but they have used an informal landscape type, whereby they have allowed the flowers, the trees to grow as free as they can, as informal as they can. They are not too much of maintained as we expected or as we saw in the formal kind of thing. And then you'll find that the walkways, the stepping stones are not even in the same shape, and it's not even the same size. There are different kinds of sizes. You find the edges. These are mostly an irregular kind of expression. You see on the right that it's just trying to create a natural environment in a home that maybe wouldn't want to test on too much of the straight lines, the shapes. And you find even just the walkway on the right, you find that they've put stones of different shapes, and they have allowed grass to grow as wild as they can. So this is an informal kind of landscape. You see the Japanese also have an informal kind, the stepping stones of their own shape. Then you find out that the trees in the landscape are of different shapes, they grow as wild as they can, and all this expresses an informal kind of irregular kind of compound or landscape design. And so the next thing is, what if we have a situation of we have a well organized formal hardscape, just like in the picture, and then on the softscape we find out that there is an informal kind of expression. The flowers, the trees are not put actually to embrace the formal kind of hardscape that is existent. Now this is the one that is the third kind of or type of landscape called contemporary landscape type. Here it's a mixture of informal and formal. When you mix informal and formal, you actually get contemporary. Many people make mistakes on expressing. They immediately look at this and they say, oh wait, this is a formal, but it's just a mixture of informal and formal, and so it's called contemporary landscape type. And so there are very many kinds of things. Look at this. Immediately, for example, such a picture, someone will quickly conclude and say, hey, no, this is a formal kind of landscape, because they are seeing the neat work at the bottom. But you realize that the garden around it is actually not formal, it's informal. And so the mixture of the two is when we get a contemporary kind of landscape. Of course, there are very many kinds of contemporary. You find on the left, it's a very neat concrete pot, and it's very organized. It's a formal kind of pot, but then the plant within it, it actually, when it's growing so wildly and naturally, and so it eliminates it from being a formal garden, but it makes it to be an informal garden. You see on the right that the shapes are very neat, the walkways are very neat, but you'll find out that the flowering inside, in between some of these good shapes, are actually informal. They are not maintained, they are allowed to grow wildly. And then you see next to the wall that there is nothing maintained too much, and what happens is it disqualifies it from being a formal, but it actually becomes a contemporary design. So thanks so much for part 2, and I think I'm sure you'll be able to distinguish between all the landscape types and styles. So in part 3, we are going to now look at the styles of landscapes, because if we have understood the types that and all the parts that can actually define a type, you'll see in part 3 that we are going to look at also the elements that define a style. And because there are millions and millions of styles that come out, it's not compared to the type which is only fixed to 3. And so there are principles also that define a type. Of course, here by the end of this series, maybe you'll be able to create your own kind of style, because styles are in millions and billions. It depends on what you as an individual would love to do. We shall look at some of the examples that exist, and we as well we continue. And thanks so much. This is Joshua again, Ecomice Landscape Architecture, and we are going to keep on going. And in case you have any questions, any inquiries, any feedback about what you've learned, you can email me, joshguamoisas@gmail.com. gmail.com. And then you can also check out my blog and comment on some of the blog posts if you would like. www.jpar.ch/UGLA. I remain Joshua Kwamoiza. You can contact me for any landscaping services in Uganda and all over East Africa. Thank you.